I love that we can do this.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like we're sitting across a table that is
Pretty much.
in,
Yeah.
infinitely, infinitely long or infinitely small, depending on your point of view.
Yes. So so yeah, Joel, I guess we're already recording, but I'll just kind of introduce you somewhat and we can get started. It's so Joel Veena, welcome to the Divine Shakti Arts podcast.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to have you. And I think we first met, it was Woodstock Yoga over there. And
That's right.
I happened to get invited to go see a amazing performance. It was by, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, it's Abhishek Lahiri.
That's right. Abhishek.
Abhishek.
Abhishek Lahiri.
Yeah.
Yeah, who since that time, since that concert, is I am now learning from Abhishek's father in
Oh my
Kolkata.
God. Wow.
And so that was an interesting moment. Is I was in touch with those guys. I think that was around 2017 or something like that. That
Hmm.
concert occurred, and so I was in touch with them. I connected with Abhishek in the U.S., and then kind of from then on, I've been learning from Pandit Alok Lahiri, Abhishek's father.
Wow. And so do you do that in India or through Zoom or you travel
That's
to?
right. Yeah, I've been traveling to India every year since 2007 to study Indian classical music, and then yeah, so since 2017, traveling to Kolkata to learn from Guruji
Wow.
there.
Wow. Amazing. So I guess I think it might make sense for our listeners. We'll bring it back like to like where you kind of got into things.
Sure.
So like I guess your beginnings, like getting into music like in general, like what like before India even, like how did that happen? And then kind of like that progress of like where it kind of led you.
Absolutely. Happy to share that information. I'm really privileged to have grown up in almost like a musical family. You hear Indian musicians talk about this a lot, but also my family in the U.S. My father is a piano player, keyboard player, and composer. My mother is a percussionist, and she's a great singer.
Oh, cool.
Stepfather is a jazz piano player, multi instrumentalist. So I was really steeped and surrounded in great music from birth, pretty much. The first music I was really into was reggae and Bob Marley, and those were the first artists that I really became aware of as a kid. My father was working with musicians from Jamaica and
Oh, wow.
playing in reggae bands, and later producing artists in Jamaica. So I grew up around a lot of Jamaican music. I started playing the, we'll say, regular guitar, 6 string guitar,
Yeah.
when I was around 10 years old, um, studying blues and rock, and getting into the '90s kind of grunge and pop rock scene. I loved the pop punk bands of the '90s. I loved Rage Against the Machine was one of my favorite groups for
Yeah, I've
electric guitar playing.
I've seen them. Yeah, yeah. Back in the
Oh
day.
man,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, great, very inspirational in terms of like finding a sound that
Oh
I
yeah.
really liked, that really resonated with me, and realizing as a young person that there's a lot of sounds out there to connect with, and maybe there's music beyond my imagination. And so yeah, I grew up playing music, playing in bands, and when I went off to college, in as age 18. I'm from a small town in southern Vermont. I had it stuck in my head that I wanted to move to California, as many young people do. There's a mystique and a magic to California. I attended University of California in Santa Cruz, and that is where I first encountered Indian classical music, or at least
Mm,
became aware of. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of people are familiar with Pandit Ravi Shankar because of the Beatles, and I think I was aware of him and had possibly listened to his recordings as a young person, but that is not where I really caught the vibe of Indian classical. It was really in my college. I enrolled in a lecture course called The History of North Indian Music, taught by a wonderful professor named Dard Newman.
oh wow.
And I enrolled in that class quite honestly because it was known to be an easy A. And I did not have much academic aspirations. I mainly wanted to hang out and play guitar in
Right.
college,
Yeah.
be in California, basically. This was the way that I figured out the acceptable way among my family and my peers to get to California. But
Right.
what happened was, this is an enormous lecture hall. It's a very big school, UC Santa Cruz. This is one of these 100, 200 people lecture halls. And in the morning, this was like a Monday or Tuesday morning or something. And when I had gone to kind of tune out and sleep and let music wash over me, but what ended up happening was the lecturer was so excellent, and he himself had studied with hereditary musicians, and his father is a famous musicologist. I came to find out, but the stories that Professor Newman kind of wove and told us about musicians practicing for hours and hours on end to attain special powers or special blessings, incredible discipline of artists going through tremendous hardships in order to play their music or in order to learn their music.
Right.
All legendary tales like Baba Alauddin Khan Sahib, Ravi Shankar, and Ali Akbar Khan Sahib's teacher, um, running away from home at a very tender age of 8 or 9, and traveling all over India trying to learn music. These type of stories as a young adult, having just left my home to travel in search of something, really uh, resonated with me and just really captured my imagination. And then also the music that he played us in that class was of an extremely high caliber. And he had access to these archival recordings of masters like Ustad Vilayat Khan. And those recordings also kind of blew my mind.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah, I
started,
must have. Yeah, I know. Not being introduced to like the real Indian classical music, and being a very aspiring musician from like the Western standpoint, it really hits like a whole new creative cache of inspiration. It's like it's just opens up something completely new. To see the level of attainment that these musicians have uh, achieved in their ability to um, express these things through their body, like into the instrument, is just yeah,
absolutely.
incredible.
And that was something, that element of just pure proficiency and the amount of practice was something that kind of blew my mind. Is that I always was around kind of intuitive musicians.
Hmm.
Family were intuitive musicians. We played with intuitive people. I wasn't in a classical music environment. growing
Right.
up. But this was people getting together and spontaneously singing and playing songs, or actual gigs at nightclubs and venues and stuff like that. I didn't see people practicing like one scale for hours and hours and hours. And so hearing about that practice and then experiencing the music that that sort level of dedication creates just um, opened it up for me and made me feel like I could also do this if I'm willing to practice as much as they are.
Wow. All right. So then, okay, so you're there in college, and you got opened up to this whole new world. And then, so how did you get from that point to like now there's this instrument in your hand, this Indian, the Veena. It's how did how did that happen?
So I took a workshop in college where I played regular guitar and learned some basic Raag theory from Ustad Ashish Khan, who
Hmm.
I was really lucky, who was teaching at our university. And then that was a fun experience. And I got an opportunity around that same time to enroll in a study abroad program to study. I was studying world literature at the time. I was not a music student
Hmm.
because I felt like I was already surrounded by music and musicians, and I wanted to do something different in my
Sure.
university study. So I was really fortunate to apply and be accepted for a 6-month study program to study Hindi literature and translation at the University of Delhi in 2007.
Wow.
And so a fantastic program. It's called the UCEAP Education Abroad Program. I believe it's still going. And so me, along with a group of 30 maybe students from all over California, we flew off to Delhi, where we enrolled in courses. We got set up in our own flats. We did some Hindi language intensive training. It was really a wonderful program, extremely challenging in the sense of just being dropped and living in a completely different culture.
Right.
I I really took to it immediately. I was really enamored with India and enjoyed being in Delhi. And it was at while I was living there that I encountered a CD shop, a music shop, and in the window I saw a CD of an artist named Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, who plays the Indian slide guitar that I play. He calls it Mohan Veena,
Hmm.
instrument with many names. And this album is called Classics for Pleasure. It's there on streaming nowadays, but and on the cover, it's like a low res printout of a bearded man sitting with this guitar in his lap that had a possible number of strings, and caught my fancy, and I picked up the CD and brought it back to the flat and listened to it on my Sony Discman, my portable CD player, which are now completely obsolete. Them anywhere. And that was not to be cliche, but an epiphany type moment where I had listened to Indian classical music and I was really fascinated with ragas and everything. And then I heard this instrument, and because it was a guitar and I played guitar, everything kind of connected in my mind that I could um, maybe do this.
Right.
The first thing was I was completely mystified by the sound of the instrument. I couldn't understand how such a rich variety of sounds coming
Hmm.
from guitar. And then the second thing was like, okay, if it's a guitar, I could probably learn how to play that.
Yeah.
And, I knew from my lecture courses that the way to go about learning this music, the only way was to find a teacher. And because I had all these stories in my memory from the lecture course of people traveling to see their teachers, of waiting outside their doors for weeks, begging for a lesson and things like that. So I had this kind of war going
Right.
around in my head, and I set out I set out searching the University of Delhi campus first for the music department and then for a teacher. And yeah, the story goes on. Um, to give you the slightly condensed version is that I went to the music faculty at the University of Delhi after searching the entire day. And I was extremely fortunate to encounter a musician by the name Pandit Subhash Nirwan, who is sadly no more with us, but he was a tabla master of the Delhi Gharana,
Mm.
of Delhi style of tabla playing. And basically, I was asking at the front desk, can anybody teach me this instrument? They're telling me, no, it's not a very common thing. We don't do that here. And Pandit Subhash Nirwan comes striding down the hallway, almost like in a movie out of nowhere, and he says, I am Pandit Subhash Nirwan, great tabla player of Delhi. I will. I say, um, I'm learning some Hindi at this time, and every time that you answer a question correctly in Hindi class, your teachers will say shabash, which means good job.
Mm.
And so I thought that I said, "Oh wow, you're a great tabla player." I said, "Shabash, sure, sir." And he said, "No, no, shabash is what you say to a child. To me, you say kya baat hai," which is kya baat hai is what you hear in a classical concert when somebody does a tremendous riff and an amazing rhythmic pattern. You'll hear in the audience people going, "Wah wah, kya baat, kya baat."
Okay. All right.
And
Cool.
so this became Subhash Nirwanji's his catchphrase almost. Is anything great that happened, it was kya baat, kya baat.
Mm.
And he was really the one, and his son Suraj Nirwan, who was my same age, helped me to connect with my first teacher, Dr. Ranjan Kumar. And kind of from that point, I started studying intensively with him. I completely left my literature studies, neglected them, and I was really fortunate that my advisor at the University of Delhi, he was also very busy with his personal life. He was off traveling in Rajasthan and having a great time doing that, and he really wasn't bothered by my lack of scholarship.
Yeah.
I I started studying then 3-4 days a week with Dr. Ranjan and practicing between 4 and 8 hours a day in between the lessons to achieve that
Wow. So
my
that's a
expectation.
long, yeah, that's a lot of practicing. It's a lot of discipline. Yeah. So what was that like? Was it you just kind of it's like almost like your day job. You go and you start practicing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, at first, it was very challenging to maintain the level of focus required. It's
Mm.
like one thing you can sit. And also, I would never sit like for 4 hours at a stretch. I would typically do,
Burnout.
2 hours and then take a break and then come back and do 2 more hours. Or even in our classes too, we would have breaks. But even to know what to practice for that amount of time is a challenge. You sometimes our minds get all restless and you think, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing the same thing over and over again? I
Right.
want some new material. I'm bored of this material. And it's amazing as I've been studying this music since 2007, so more than 10 years now. The more I learn, the more I know that I need to practice. As there's just endless amounts of variations and refinement. And in particular, this approach of Indian music of looking at one phrase, one passage of notes, and again revisiting it, playing it, repeating it, not mindlessly, but to really try to unlock the beauty of that phrase, almost like a sketch artist or a painter. You do art, so you
Hmm.
can imagine this is that a lot of times you would start with a coarse form, an outline is like your first um, design of what you're going to paint or your first idea. And then as you're working on it, you're getting into finer and finer levels
Yes.
of detail. And at a certain point, every artist realizes like there's no end to this.
Right. Yeah.
I can continually refine and refine and refine. And that's kind of the beauty of this music is that, and the idea of practicing it too, is it's not to achieve a specific end product or an end goal. It's really the act of the continual refinement and searching for that kind of unattainable perfection.
Wow. Yeah. I can get what you're saying. I haven't like got into say guitar like to that extent, but a little bit perhaps. But with drumming, I know I would kind of practice like that when I was playing the drum set for hours and hours, and just the level of subtlety that you start to get aware of, it just feels amazing. It's like a whole little like world of just like nuances with each little hit, the how hard you're hitting something and the emphasis, and it's just it opens up like a little place of like bliss within like a couple notes or something like that. You can just go into it and go into it. It's yeah, and you saying this, it kind of brings me back there of
Mhm.
what that feeling's like. And I think it takes you need to kind of get your you need to get into the practicing a little deep in order to like break that shell, and then you're in that experience, it seems.
Yeah, that's true in my experiences. And then sometimes we also practice mechanically. Not That's not ideal, but it's inevitable. It's like
Right.
sometimes you sit down and the level of focus that you need to approach this level of detail is just not coming. It's not necessarily practical, even if you're thinking like, okay, I have half an hour and then I have to go, grocery shopping or I have to go to work or like that.
Right.
But the practice of the practice of practice. We call in terms of music practice, we call it riyaz,
Mm.
Riyaz.
Yes.
And so doing riyaz is also like preparing your muscle memory, your chops, and your body in such a way that when inspiration comes, you are prepared to play whatever that idea is that comes. And by
Mm.
playing these repetitive exercises, or either even just examining one really beautiful passage and phrase over and over again, it has this amazing transformative quality where you're working on the one phrase single-mindedly over and over again, and then that reveals a multitude of other phrases and understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a whole world you can become lost in it. Um, and I think what one last thing I want to say about that idea is that the for me the ultimate goal of practice and riyaz and exploring this music and exploring that space of the nuance and the detail is to be able to open that world to an audience, to let them come and into that space and have that beautiful experience that I'm having playing this music, of showing them where is the nuance, where are the beauty points. As
Yes.
one teacher, Barun Paul, Pandit Barun Paul, he often would talk about these. He would play a composition. He'd say, "This is the beauty point of this one." And
Cool. So I wanted to just kind of also ask you. I noticed you were going to Matagiri Sri Aurobindo Center, and then that's kind of, I guess, how you ended up at Woodstock Yoga. I think, if I'm understanding. And then I think you did a performance over there. And then I was watching. I don't know if this is actually you, but I was watching a beautiful movie from uh, one of the organizations that come from Auroville in India, and it was called Evolution Fast Forward. And in the credits, I was like, I see your name, and I was like, oh,
I believe they used, I believe some of my music is in that one. That is the one with the computer graphics
it's
and the
yeah, it's
chakras
all
and stuff like
yes,
that.
it's all
Yes.
CGI, and it's yeah, it's an incredible. I mean, what they explain and in that, and then just using CGI is like, was really, I've never seen anything like it. It's like I've never seen anything like to that level explain like the deeper levels of spirituality and reality and things like that. In
Using the
like
technology like that.
exactly using like the technology. So that kind of hit me, and then it was so cool like to see your name after. I was like, okay, that's that's interesting that I know this person. Um,
That is a wonderful composer who created that, who was in the ashram, the Auroville Aurobindo ashram in Pondicherry. My friend Arnab Chowdhury.
mm,
Um, Interesting. He actually comes from a hereditary line of Indian classical musicians, and he of tabla and other artists, and he is there at the ashram now creating these type of these type of projects and amazing
wow,
art.
yeah,
Great
what a great
piano player
service.
and composer. Um, Yeah, so I became linked with Auroville and that whole scene um, around the same time, around 2016, 2015. There's I made some great friends in my area here in southern Vermont, Gordon and Jean Corstange, who were involved in the founding of Auroville.
Mm,
70s. And when I met them here, and both we all traveled to India, they stay there for part of the year. Um, and they asked me to, yeah, please come and visit us in this place, come and see this place. And that was an amazing experience because Auroville is a completely unique place in terms of India and in terms of the world. As I had really my experience in India was really in the cities. Was
right.
I lived in Delhi, and I toured and played from Delhi and now in Mumbai. And Auroville is this amazing green place where they have undertaken an incredible reforestation process, and one of the few places in India where I like to like drive a motorbike around or ride a bicycle around in this
Yeah.
green paradise. and all kinds of interesting people from all over the world. I got into reading some of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And actually, I was familiar with Sri Aurobindo from my study of literature,
Oh wow.
not because he is an incredibly prolific writer in all
Absolutely.
stages of his life. And in terms of the canon of my program of study, what I was studying was really his revolutionary writings before he became a spiritual teacher. Is that he was very active in the movement to get the British out of India.
Right.
These were the writings that I was first exposed to. And then, so yeah, really fascinating to then connect with the spiritual community, this community for world unity. That's their, that's their objective. And yeah, wonderful place to play. Great
Yes. I saw,
environment
yes.
there.
When I was there, I spent like a week there, and I remember visiting around, and the feeling is just like so potent there. And I remember seeing little spots where musicians would set up and play, and just feeling like, oh boy, like I could probably just like forget life and just like live there for a while and play music. It just looks so amazing. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, the experience there is very special. I think it does carry the original intention of that place, of that world unity and place of new consciousness. Regardless of how long the mother has been passed, and Sri Aurobindo, it does seem to hold a certain force there, which is really lovely.
Yeah, I can really attest to that in my personal life. Is that Auroville, when I started visiting there, and also Pondicherry by extension, I met one of my great collaborators there, Kees van Bokstel, wonderful bamboo flute player from the Netherlands.
Oh, beautiful.
We've since recorded a lot together, and we toured together in Europe and in India. He meeting with him and playing my first concert with him in Pondicherry was also where I met my wife, and
Yes,
she was
Vidi.
working. Vidi, who was there at Divine Shakti Arts a couple of years ago,
Yes.
and and then also I met Abhishek Lahiri and Pandit Alok Lahiri via Case van Boxtel, who I met in Auroville. So
Oh, cool.
very very
Yeah.
connecting type of place. And then also I'm from this town in Vermont called Brattleboro, which Brattleboro and Putney, Vermont, have ties to Orville as well. The person who set up the solar systems of the International Center and Visitor Center in Oroville was from Putney.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's like the more you examine this link, the more you come to find out how connected you are.
Yeah. That's great. And I love Vermont too. I used to, I don't snowboard that much anymore, but that was my little getaway spot, and just to soak in the beauty and the green and the pine trees. And yeah, it's a nice place to also grow up for sure. Peaceful compared to,
I'm
the cities and everything. Yeah.
extremely privileged to have grown up here.
Yeah. Is that where you are right now?
That is where I am right now, or in our house in Guilford, Vermont, which is kind of the southeast corner.
Yeah.
Vermont, we're right up against Massachusetts, and hopefully planning on returning to India in January or February, but everything is still very uncertain.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's the time. Um, so a little bit more just about your playing, your experience playing. I think about that level of discipline and then practice, and then I think about that, how you got to experience Auroville and Pondicherry. So you have that kind of side your experience as well. And do you feel like there's some sort of like, is there? Do you have a way to express a certain spirituality that you have experienced through playing? Like, is there a sense of the spirit in your experience? Would you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing that I've been conscious of since even I was a child and being into music was this experience of inspiration,
Mm,
of um, making music or humming a song or playing my instrument and then having an idea come or melody come from somewhere, and it's like a very perfect idea as it arrives, kind of beyond what I as my ego or me as Joel can really come up with.
right.
And that is a really different experience than now I'm a semi-mature musician, is that I can set out to compose something, and that I can also create um, decent music and people will appreciate it and I will be happy with that. But that is a very different experience than this idea of inspiration, where the melody, it's like actual content comes from somewhere. Some people say like it's in your subconscious, or some people say it's in your environment. Um, so I've been aware of this as a youth, and then doing riyaz, practicing Indian classical music and exploring the ragas, I've come to see how it really kind of prepares you to experience this inspiration like a channel. Is that it
Right.
seems to me that this tradition is uniquely, or I don't know uniquely, but specially designed and practiced throughout the generations and generations to cultivate this experience of inspiration. And that feels like a very spiritual practice to me while I'm doing it. This idea that I am preparing my body, my mind, my emotional state to receive these contents from
Right. Yeah. That's yeah, well put as well. That it's you're kind of like creating yourself to be like an instrument of that creativity, wherever that creativity comes from, which seems to be this unknown place, this some sort of the source of creativity. And
Yeah,
to me, it seems like this creativity that drops a melody in our minds or a rhythm, uh, it has a source somewhere, and if you follow that all the way down that source, then it seems almost logical that it's probably the source that creates everything. And
absolutely.
so
Of
so it's
course.
like it's linking you with that kind of one creative force by like preparing yourself as a musician. It's kind of like a way to um it's like sadhana basically. It's spiritual practice to
Yeah,
yeah, in a sense, yeah.
absolutely. I've been told, there's one of these sayings in the Indian classical circles about, you know, um, every day, we do riyaz, we do practice. And then at a certain point in our maturity as an artist, the riyaz can become sadhana, can become an act of devotion. Kind of the implied meaning of, it can become is that through, it's like an evolutionary state,
Right.
is that riyaz and practice is more mechanical, and the more that our mechanical and physical ability and chops, um, the less we have to think about them basically, and the less we have to strain, then the possibility of sadhana starts to come into the
Wow. Wow,
come into the
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wisdom, not from me, from the yeah, from the tradition.
Yeah, I just love that though, because I personally haven't heard it put that way. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's inspiring, you know, being someone who plays music and someone who's interested in spirituality, to hear it be put like that. So
Mm.
yeah, lovely. Okay, so just moving forward here, just a couple more things. I wanted to hear like a little bit about your thoughts on just like the different cultures, and I believe you learned Hindi, right? Is that correct? That's
Yeah, थोड़ी Hindi आती है. I don't know
it.
so much. My Hindi is bad. I should after all this time I should really be pretty fluent. But you know, should is one of those operative
Yeah,
words.
I'm just starting to get my feet wet with Hindi, and it's because there lately there's been a lot of Hindi speaking people around me, so I'm just like, okay, there's a great opportunity to learn it a little, and it has been really lovely. But my question to you was, what do you think? Do you feel, because you've experienced like wholeheartedly both different cultures, like the Indian culture and the Western culture, and do you feel like there's something that they could learn from each other, and there's some sort of uh, like cohesion waiting to happen, from your perspective?
Absolutely. You know, I think of course there's a lot to learn from both sides, can learn from each other. But in particular, the Indian culture has a wealth of ideas and experience that can really benefit our understanding of our interpersonal relationships in the West. Is that if I have to be like very general, is that my experience growing up in a quote unquote Western culture is that we are very focused on the individual. And this is kind of a cliche that you'll hear sociologists talk about too, is individual versus community minded. But individual in the sense that every single person is an island who is, you know, responsible for themselves, needs to take care of themselves. If something is going wrong with you, it's generally thought of that, you know, you need to do something to correct that, or a
Right.
certain situation. You might be in some certain situation which has to finish in order for you to be fine again. In the Indian culture, I've had this amazing experience of being absorbed into so many different families.
Hmm.
I'm never alone when I'm in India, and I'm never alone when I'm here now because of all of these wonderful people who have brought me into their family unit. Um, in the sense that um, where the family is very connected, and the family in India will live together while the children are adults also, and
Right.
until you are married and start your own household. And sometimes not even then. Sometimes the household just grows and becomes
Expands.
larger,
Yeah.
and you have, yeah, you have cousins, you have grandparents, you have uncles. Sometimes you just even have like a longtime family friend who ends up living there with you. And this experience of like being in that community, immersed in that, of somebody is always saying, you know, are you okay? Do you need this? Do you need that? Are you fine? Could you help me with this? Is that it never stops. There's no barrier there. And so it's very fluid. And that feels, to me, that feels like very warm and very strengthening to
Hmm.
know these people are really caring for me. And of course, you know, I was again very privileged. I had a very caring upbringing, not to comment at all on, I mean, I had lovely childhood, very caring parents and everything, but it's just the approach to togetherness. It's almost like our default in the West is like you're out on your own, the cowboy, the rugged individual. We support you, do a good job, we're rooting for you. And Indian culture is a little bit more like we're all together in
Yeah.
this. And sometimes that can be really frustrating from a Western perspective too, when you're feeling like I have a certain task that I need to finish,
Yeah.
but I have to help. I have to help X, Y, and Z with this thing, and I have to do
Right, right.
this and this person, and oh, I just need to do my task. When will I get to do my task? And so, in that sense, the West has a lot to learn from Indian culture in the sense that they still get everything done. It's not there's maybe a perception or a cliche that nothing is happening in these developing countries, that countries are developing because people don't work hard or something like that. But that's a complete fallacy. As I can tell
Mm,
you, I've been traveling in India for 13, 14 years. Still everything gets done. Meals get cooked, people go to work, resources flow, etc. So it's just a different system. And for coming from the West, we tend to hold so tightly to our structures and our ways of doing things that even just witnessing a different way of interpersonal relationship or organizing your day or time management, that can just be so freeing and
yes.
helpful for imaginations being.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, when I was in India, I didn't spend that much time there, but that was the experience. There was a certain like openness and freeingness, like a freedom that would just be all around. I can't really explain it that well. Like, obviously, like the roads in India are absolutely insane. Um, but everyone everyone gets where they're trying to go. There's just like a different way to do it. Like they communicate with like sounds and horns, to let everyone know where they're going. There's like cows crossing the road. There's like giant
Art.
hay, yeah, like hay barrels, like you've never seen, like like right in front of you. And it's just like, how's this all working? Like it's like hard to like understand, like how is this working, how does everything get done? There's like the organization is kind of so fluid. But yeah, it does happen. It's and it happens all through like this sort of grace, or like the natural like pulse of nature. It just kind of like all works, which is cool.
See,
Yeah.
as yeah, one interesting fact that I learned from my study of colonial history is that India did not use mechanical time before the British arrived,
Oh my God. Wow.
before the British invaded. And so you can really, being there, I think you can really understand or get some
Yeah.
idea on how that influences the culture,
Oh
is
my
that
God.
things are not necessarily exactly this time or exactly that time.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's that certain fluidity, or like a sense of like not knowing like the expansion and contraction of time. Like you could be
Totally.
doing, yeah, it's like you could be in one place, it feels like 2 hours or something like that. And that's the whole, I guess, it works with all the stories of India and the masters as well. It kind of fits all in that certain mystique and magic that flows around there. And then the other side, when I came back to the U.S., there was a certain sense of like, oh wow, like like everything's just like working. Everything, like everyone's just like driving the right way, and the lights are Like everyone stops at the red light and then they move. Like,
It seems very kind of closed down and kind of not so colorful. I always, when I come back from India, as I see land in a big city like Boston or New York, and I'm just thinking, yeah, where are all the people? Where's the life? It's like there's a million people in this city, but there's no food on the streets. There's no people walking around. Everybody driving in a straight line, and
oh
it's
yeah, yeah.
that I miss that flavor.
Oh yeah. It's like very open. All the life is right out in front of you and expressed.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Joel. There's other listeners that play music and they listen to this podcast, and I just wanted to know if you have any like thoughts, for the or message for the aspiring world musician of what they should start to think about, and maybe a certain encouraging perspective or thought or anything that you had to share for someone just kind of getting their feet wet and starting down that road.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. Yeah, what I love to tell people is that, as you're interested in world music and meaning music from another culture, that's a genre that we used here in the West to describe, African music, Caribbean diaspora, Middle Eastern music, South Asian music, all of this. And I just encourage everyone to try to connect with authentic teachers of these traditions. And authentic can mean a lot, but it means, in terms of determining that, there's a little bit of kind of study that we all have to do, is that we want to learn the music of another culture or another place than where we are currently. Then a little bit of the history does a lot to help us understand the musical forms. It doesn't seem like it would be related. Like we think maybe we can just learn the music in isolation and then do something creative with it from our
Hmm.
own perspective. And you can absolutely do that, but you're really going to miss the wealth of that music's journey, of how it came to your attention in the first place. Because in history, we were not connected with the cultures far away from us just because of the sheer physical space.
Right.
And now, because of the internet, and before that, publications and books and stuff, we've been able to connect with these cultures and these musics from all around the globe. And so, to really honor that miracle that has been happening over the last several hundred, several thousand years, and that miracle is broadening of collective consciousness and of broadening of awareness of each other and our stories where we come from. So it's like I was so fortunate with my study of Indian music that it went along in this progression where I had the opportunity to take a lecture class before anything, before I even started trying to play. And then so I knew when I encountered that slide guitar instrument that like I couldn't learn or I couldn't get the results that I wanted to on my own.
Right.
So I would say like just general encouragement and advice for musicians is like read and study also, and you'll get so much more richness from your experience of the music, is it doesn't have to be a separate activity either. Is as you say, you get a lesson, or you're trying to learn a piece from YouTube. That's what a lot of times what we do. We'll be like, okay, this Afro-Cuban All Stars song that I know from this album, I really like it. I'm gonna learn to play it on my instrument. And so then you're learning it, you're learning the melody and the rhythm and everything. But then it's like, why that rhythm? What is the meaning of that rhythm? Whether if you do some research, you might come to find out, oh, this percussion part in this song, this is like from people picking sugarcane. This is simulating some activity, some group activity that they did together. And I'm
Mm,
just making example and
right.
conjecture. I don't know Afro-Cuban music that much, but or like in the case of the blues, for us learning the blues, many of these blues songs are based on these work songs from the plantations, which are connected to the West African music.
Right.
And now, amazing time to study West African music and the blues because Afro pop is blowing up in Nigeria and Ghana. And these artists now, it's like a full circle around the entire globe. And now we're back to Africa. And so for the world musician, for the aspirant world musician, it's like we want to find our place in there and have the knowledge and participate in this evolution and in this changing of the ideas. And we do that best by increasing our knowledge
Mm,
and interacting with authentic teachers. Authentic meaning somebody who has learned in a traditional way or is directly connected to, or even better, directly in, currently in that culture.
right.
And that can mean, for a Western person, that can mean a lot of times coming out of our comfort zone a little bit. It might mean trying to communicate with somebody who you don't share like a common language with full proficiency. It
Right.
might mean like trying to use Google Translate a little bit to communicate with somebody, or learning a few phrases, or just being really patient with somebody who is going to communicate with you in a different type of English
Mm,
than you're used to. And instead of being like, oh, that's really hard to pronounce, or like, I can play, I can understand this much of the song, but then after this part, it gets really complicated and the lyrics are really hard to pronounce. Instead of, when you meet that wall, which you will inevitably, because we're trying to connect with something that's much bigger than ourselves. It's not going to be just an easy
yes.
one-to-one connection. And so when we meet that resistance, instead of becoming like angry, which is kind of the typical thing that happens when we
Mm-hmm.
don't understand something, or it seems difficult, is using that little bit of meditation practice, or if we do mindfulness, to be like, okay, I don't understand this, making me angry. I'm gonna try to learn more about
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Um, that's very good advice. I think a little knowledge, yes, will link you in much more deeply with your practice. Um,
it.
very, very lovely, and I'm sure many will benefit from that. And even for me, it's really nice to hear that.
Man. Yeah, and I also, listeners are welcome to contact me. You'll have my contact in the description there. You're welcome to, send me questions. I teach. I also have materials for guitar players who want to try out Indian slide guitar style tunings and setups. I've created kind of guides for people to dip their toes into
Oh,
that
amazing.
world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to now kind of just uh, hear about like where we could find you, and what how best to contact you if we wanted to see like where you're playing, and then also maybe lessons, whatever you're doing. Where would that be?
Absolutely. So I've got this website, joelveena.com, which is, yeah, JOELVEENA.com. and that's kind of that's the central place, and there's a mailing list on
Hmm.
there. It's really nice to sign up on the mailing list, and then you get to know about concerts. A lot of them are online these days, so that's a neat thing, is that you don't actually have to be in the same place as me in the world to participate in concerts and activities like that. I'm also there on all the streaming platforms for people who use digital music services like Spotify and Apple Music. You'll find my music, Joel Veena, there. And I'm there on some social media too. You're also welcome to contact me there. And I think the best way to get in touch with me, if you have like a specific question or you wanted to talk about lessons or anything with me, would be just to write me an email
Mm.
via my website. And I'm the person, I don't have any handlers or anything. You can write directly to me, and that's just Joel at joelvina.com. Find me
Okay.
through the website. Yeah.
Lovely. Lovely. All right. So that's exciting. And do you have any upcoming shows? Just curious.
I do not currently. I did just play. I got to play some nice in-person shows at the Omega Institute
Yes, I saw
Quebec
some pictures of
there.
that. Yeah.
Lovely place. And then we had a couple concerts here in southern Vermont. So definitely, people can sign up on the mailing list. And I tour all over the world, God willing, and when it's possible. And so, wherever you're listening from, do check out that mailing list. I come to California and Europe and India.
Amazing. All right. So we'll have to connect more in the future, and maybe, I remember last time I had you all booked to play at our event, and then I ended up being called to California at
That's
that
right. I
same
didn't
time.
actually get to play for you.
Yeah, so I kind of
Yeah.
yeah, I saw some of the video footage and all that, which was amazing, but I didn't personally get to experience the real thing in, in the flesh. So hopefully one day soon that can still happen.
Would love, yeah, maybe you can hear me in upstate New York, and definitely Matagiri is in my consciousness. That is a place that I will play again soon.
Yes, yes. And if we ever have like another thing going on, you're definitely in our consciousness to have you be a part of whatever we're doing. So,
Love that.
all right. Well, I believe you're going to now bless us with a little performance. Little
Absolutely.
amazing. So I noticed during this conversation that the internet is a little unstable. So I'm just hoping, my fingers crossed, that we don't get any major interruptions during this. But I think at least we'll get most of it. If anything, I think it might be a little choppy at places, but I think we'll all get the picture at least.
Great. Yeah. And if if folks are listening and they like it, there's lots of music out there in the digital world that hopefully it will come to you in without choppiness.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, we're just thankful to be able to do something like this at all, because it's amazing that I'm sitting in my house talking with you. And you're in New York?
Yeah, in New York. Right now, I'm in Wurtsboro, New York. So it's kind of upstate, a little bit further south than Woodstock. But yeah, still kind of up there.
Great. So
Yeah.
I'll take my instrument. It's right next to me, and then I'll tune briefly, and I'm going to play a Raag of the late morning for you. This is called Raag Jonpuri. And just very briefly, for those unfamiliar with Indian classical music, is that we perform pieces of music that are set in a rag or raga. And a Raag is a musical form kind of unique to Indian classical music that encompasses a musical scale that can be different ascending or descending, a time of day, and also a mood or special occasion that it's connected with. And when we play, we try to play in such a way to evoke the mood and atmosphere of a particular Raag, almost as if it were a personality or an individual that we were trying to kind of sketch into our reality, sketch into our room.
Hmm.
And I will play in a kind of condensed classical presentation. You'll hear three movements, three brief movements, starting with what's called alap, which is an invocation. I'm introducing each phrase of the Raag without rhythm. That develops into the jor, which is the same invocation again, but then a pulse has developed. And then that accelerates into a jala, roughly translates to sparkling. And that is a very fast, kind of exciting finish. And the idea, building from very simple and very calm to a climactic finish, and then the energy kind of just dissipates. And I find the whole process very therapeutic and very connecting. So I hope that you all feel the
Hmm.
same.
Lovely.
All right. Ra
absolutely beautiful.